Won't you wait till the cows come home? Won't you wait till the cows come home? Dear old contented bell and boss, soon the meadow they will cross down the lane. At the close of day, once again, they will wend their way. Hear them in the dell, moo! Contented you can tell, moo! Won't you wait, wait, wait by the old red gate? Won't you wait till the cows come home?
Yeah. But I think we do have John Morton as a mystery guest today. Jody, I want you to talk a little bit more about your books and your ideas and play some of your good music. I've got further footage about the fish, microbenzas that are spawning, and also I wanted to talk a little bit just about TV itself and some of the new FCC rules. But why don't we take a little break now, listen to your music, and then we'll look at some fish, and then we'll come back and we'll have a mystery guest.
Chère maman, on vient de mettre l'éclette de la prison, l'éclette de la prison. Gâchis, comment dis-tu dedans l'éclette de la prison? Quand les officiers les ont clochés dans le cou, les ont clochés dans le cou. Dear Mom, they're going to give me the keys to this prison. Listen here, boy, how do you say that they're going to give you the keys when the officers have them hung around their necks? Chère Mom, ils vont venir chercher mes feux de soir. Oui, c'est pour me prendre mes olisets de nuit, mes olisets de nuit. Chère Mom, ce qui me fait plus peine, c'est de se voir ma montre aussi longtemps d'avant, aussi longtemps d'avant. Dear Mom, they're going to come looking for me around 9 o'clock this evening. Yeah, they're going to hang me around 10 o'clock tonight. Dear Mom, you know what gives me so much pain is to know so far ahead of time that I'm going to die. Son père se mit à ses genoux en s'enrachant les cheveux, en s'enrachant les cheveux. Comment j'ai pu te quitter, c'est pour m'en aller, mais dans une grande prison, mais dans une grande prison. See his father, he's gotten down on his knees and he's tearing out his hair. Look here, boy, how was I ever to leave you to go inside prison? Without going without following you there. Je sais pas comment tu voulais faire quand les officiers étaient autour de moi avec les carabines, Chez moi, ils vont venir chercher mes feux de soir, oui c'est pour me prendre mes olisets de nuit, mes olisets de nuit. Well, look here, Pop. What did you want me to do when the officers had surrounded me with their rifles? Dear Mom, they're going to come looking for me at 9 o'clock this evening. And they're going to hang me at 10 o'clock tonight. Chère Mom, chère Mom. Ce qui me fait plus de peine, c'est de se voir ma montre aussi longtemps d'avant, aussi longtemps d'avant. C'est toi qui m'emmène, oui, bon pour l'hôtel, avec nos beaux choix quenelles, avec ma belle voiture noire, avec les carreaux rouges, Dear Mom, what makes me so sad is knowing so far ahead of time that I've got to die.
You know, Mom, it's got to be you that takes me away, that takes my body to the ground, and that puts me in my fine black carriage with my 4 red wheels, with my fine bay horse, 4 red wheels, with the 4 red wheels. And that was sung for the Library of Congress Archive of American Folk Song by a 15-year-old girl, Elida Hofpower, who, with her sister and father, recorded for John Womack and his son Alan, who I believe was only 19 at the time that they recorded this. And Alan said he went back. I heard him on the radio years later at NPR or something like that. He said that he went back to visit the Hofpower family and give them recordings of the songs. Elida, although she was so young, had died, but several of the other people who had been the members of the family who had been alive and then were still there, plus their children and grandchildren, and they wanted to have a memory of their family's songs. He said at the time there were plenty of professional Cajun musicians perform, but he wanted to get the kind of songs that people preserved in their families, because that was the sort of song that might die out. And he recorded Elida's father, Julien, singing a song I've sung for you in the French-Canadian version.
Well, there's the male diving into the teacup. I don't see really too much activity. I believe this is his significant other, but there's so many little females in here, and those are here comes the real mama. Look how red she is. And she doesn't want those little predators to go in there. They're probably wanting to take her man away from her. And she'll go in there with him. I don't think the eggs have hatched out yet. If they have, they're very, very tiny. They're swirling up all kind of stuff. You'll see both. Oh, look, that Plecostomus would like to get in there and eat those eggs. Yum, yum. But, no, there she goes in. And I have a feeling the eggs are up near the top and probably have not hatched yet. They don't like that light on them. They'll start doing some shaking activity probably to try to get us to go away. There she goes after somebody. When the babies hatch, we might be seeing a tiny little bit of hatched activity. They'll pick them up in their mouths and spit them out and basically rail them around. But I think those little bits of detritus are literally just that. Wish I could zoom in a little bit closer, but I don't think I can. That's the male inside the teacup, and he wants that light to go away. Babies might be hatching. They really might be hatching. You see his mate. You can see my flashlight there to try to get some light in. Angelfish. Many other fish in the community tank are curious about what's going on. The female, I guess, is doing perimeter duty. She'll come into view in just a minute. She's beautifully colored up. And he has too. He has really gotten some color on his belly as well. The yellow-faced crabenzas make the best parents. Sometimes, frankly, I think the others are a little prettier, but you can see that these have yellow faces. And if he would come out, you would see that his belly has become as pink as well. Hey, they might be hatching out. They're doing a lot of mouthing down there in the bottom. But they'll be just a little ooey gooey mass, and next time we tape, I'll show some more footage of that. I don't think at this stage there's too much more to report, except that mother and father are doing their jobs and driving off other rivals for the teacup. That's a very desirable place to hide. I'll back it out. You can see, yeah, there's a little female on the right watching. See my flashlight. Decided this is reality TV. We'll go up a little bit now. There she comes around. She's awfully, awfully pretty. Wish he'd come out. He might. But she's really beautiful. Maybe next time we'll have something to report. I have a feeling that, well, the babies might be hatching right now. The male seems to be paying a lot of attention to the bottom and doing some things in there. I really can't see in too well, but if we could, like I said, we would see just a little mass of wiggly things. I have another pair over in another tank, a tank I think I talked about. These spawned on sand, so the babies are just almost white. The camp, that can't be a conscious thing. It must just be a reaction to their surroundings, like your pupils of your eyes dilating or closing down depending on the amount of light you have, because they're just as white as can be, whereas these cribs are pretty much all dark now. And most of these other cribenzas in this tank, besides this pair, were in that sandy bottom tank, and they were just being hassled so much that I moved them over to this dark bottom tank, and they've turned typical cribenza color, which is what you see. That means, the violent shaking like that means go away. We don't like you. We don't want you here. Intruding into our boudoir. I have learned things the hard way at the expense of my fish. And, you want to be a good steward of them, but I have killed with kindness. And you never know. It must be horrible to be a doctor. It's funny that you bring that up. Just today, a person who will remain anonymous called me about a concern he had with his goldfish. He had one of those fancy round goldfish, but it had appeared to lose its equilibrium. It didn't have pine cone disease, which means the fins are standing out like a pine cone, which it has kidney failure, and you should give it the spoon as quickly as possible and then plant it under a nice tree. But it didn't have that. It was a female, so it was very gravid, but those fish are bred to be round anyway. And we talked on and on about it, and I said, well, use, Occam's razor. It's either egg-bound, in which case you can resort to a rather dire procedure, like poking the hole on the side of a cow to let the gas out, but you have to take like one of those orange sticks if you're the kind of person who manicures your fingernails. Mine just tastes so good. I don't do that, but an orange stick, and then you have to grab the fish upside down. It does not like this in the water, with maybe a wet towel or one of those things you take hot stuff out of the oven, and hold it upside down and sort of press that orange stick around that little spot where eggs and other things exit the fish, and squeeze very gently, not hard. And if, there's about a 50% mortality rate, but sometimes those eggs will just blast forth and the fish will be fine. So I said, well, that's a possibility. I said, carp or cold water fish, is your tank deep enough for them? He said, oh yeah, it has depths and all. And so usually that's not heat is what takes out a cold water fish's air bladder, and once their air bladder has burst, they no longer have an equilibrium. you know, they kind of remember with their fins, but they don't have any ballast, you know, other than the muscle stuff it takes. And because really a fish can control its descent very efficiently with that air bladder. So, I'm just probably boring. But anyway, he was very concerned about his fish. He said, you know, the proper way to euthanize your fish, you can either do it quickly if you can stand the gore, or you can take it in its own water and put a couple of tablespoons of sea salt and then put it in your deep freeze and come back the next day. Then you could cut it open and see what's the matter with it, because it's either most likely, you know, a cyst. Those kind of fish are prone to cysts anyway, and you'd see it. It'd just be a round thing in there, or it would have been full of eggs. You know, especially if it didn't have kidney disease.
Well, if you're letting eggs out of a fish, that's probably a favor to you and the fish and to the offspring, all three.
Well, they're not fertilized, you know, they're just trapped in there, and sometimes that happens, and it's a great relief. You know, it's like a boil or something. There's like a volcano, there's pressure building up. But the fish doesn't have, you know, its little pea brain, it doesn't know that you're trying to help it.
Yeah, I figure for
Yeah.
very good reasons,
Yeah.
fish do not assume we're going to be benevolent to them.
Right, and so a way to be benevolent to your indoor fish is to have lots of plants. You
Yeah.
know, because they can't see the glass, and I've had fish run into the glass so hard that if I had not had really impeccable water quality in my tank, they would have gotten a nasty fungus and probably died.
Well, I know plenty of people who are devoted to their houseplants, and they tell me that after a while you really feel a psychic contact with houseplants. And that's an even more different consciousness from us than fish.
Yeah, but the secret life of plants, you know, plants live in the house with you. They live in the air.
Mhm.
We're symbiotic with them. You know, what they give off is what we need, and what we give off is what they need. And I think they have higher consciousness. Why else would they have the luxury of sexual reproduction?
Well,
They could just clone.
my grandmother planted a cedar tree that grew into a very beautiful blue silver colored cedar. And when that tree, it must have been 40 years after she first planted it, was struck by lightning, and she grieved over it like over a person.
I would grieve over my rose bush back there, which,
Uh-huh.
you know, let's show some people of how beautiful that was, because we were taking pictures of it before we came in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wait Till the Cows Come Home. We do have a mystery guest today, none other than my dear friend John Morton. Serves as my editor on many shows, pulled many cyber chestnuts out of the fire for me, and also happens to be a volunteer at Grant County's #1 tourist destination, the Silver City Museum. And this is really, and then he also is, I'm going to ask him another question, but for those of you who are from elsewhere who want to know where to begin a discovery of Grant County, I could think of no place better than the Silver City Museum. So just give them the 1, 2, 3, John, please.
All right, our museum is on Broadway at Pinos Altos. It's 2 blocks east of the county courthouse, easy to find, located in the historic Harry Ailman House.
Yeah.
There's always something going on there worth seeing. There's an exhibit at the front gallery, one in the rear gallery, permanent exhibits upstairs, and their phone number is 538-5921. The museum's open on weekends from 10 to 4, and Tuesday through Friday from 9 to 4:30. Admission's free, though contributions are always welcome.
It's a great place to begin your exploration of Grant County. And I've seen so many fine art exhibits. They have what I call the Guggenheim West in the back, a descending sort of spiral ramp of an exhibit space. A curator who her was from the Smithsonian, I believe, you know, one of her prior things she put on her resume. And they have a calendar they put out each year. This year for 2010 is on the floods that took out the big ditch in Silver City. If you're paying attention to this, you're probably from out of town and don't know it. When people cross the ditch that really cuts north-south and really is a civic wound through the heart of the town, it truly is. At one time, that was the main street of Silver City. And over a period of, about a dozen years, due to clear cutting and grazing, and the mines were just soaking up tons and tons of combustibles, came one of those 100-year, 500-year deluges, and it took out the entire downtown in one night. What was it, September the 6th, 1906, or something like that, was the final coup de grace, and we had bad rain about 10 o'clock that night, and it must have spread out. I bet this house, which is a historic old house, the John P. Risk house, at that time, since the ditch wasn't 60 feet down, I bet anything this area took on in water.
Very likely.
Yeah, or real close to it. Fish flopping around, I've seen that before. And then that soaked in thoroughly. Well, about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, another giant downpouring of water funneled in. It forms a Y. The big ditch is a Y shape, and the two sides of it both happened to just be sitting underneath a thunderstorm. Took on a huge deluge of water, and it pushed the entire infrastructure, big brick buildings stuffed with stuff, pushed that infrastructure, cut it as clean as a knife almost in some places, 60 feet down to bedrock, and carried the entire downtown down south of town in that arroyo past the dump. They say people can still go out there with a Geiger counter and find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was another night to remember. John, you are also a person who is into photoceramics. You have, I would call it an advocation with you, because it is not a hobby or anything like that. You have elevated photoceramics to what many people would call a self-taught art form, but you're such a scholar yourself. Anyway, the Silver City Museum is going to have an exhibit of John's photoceramics on November the 15th in their new annex, and details of that will be forthcoming. But tell us a little bit about what you intend to do, please.
Well, I make tiles that have fused in photographic images.
Let me hold that one.
Yeah. The technique dates back to 1860. I have modified it a little bit with a few modern quirks, but essentially it's a process that's quite old in the history of photography. And I'll plan to have, here's another one. It looks better, in my opinion, better model.
They're somewhat strong enough to wipe off with a cloth, aren't they? I mean, that image is fused into there as long as it doesn't scratch.
Yes, the color is fused into the tile, fired upon its surface. I've made a documentary film that'll be shown at the presentation, in which we look at every step, and there are a number of steps in the process of making these things. There will also be a large number of the tiles themselves on exhibit on this occasion.
We look forward to that, and we'll give you more information as the time grows closer. But John, I want to thank you so much for keeping us abreast of things happening at the Silver City Museum. That is the #1 tourist destination in Grant County. Thank you, John. Photoceramic process. I don't think that looks like me at all. I think I look like Audrey Hepburn. That's why I like it. But
it's a good photo. He did the photo. That's his work for you.
Yes, absolutely. And you remember my dear dog Rowdy.
Now I remember the dog. I never got to know that dog,
Rowdy in winter, he was getting cream whiskers, but he was a great dog, and I'm so grateful to John for doing that. Well, we've heard some of your wonderful music, and we intend to hear some more of it. I've talked about my fish, but you, Jody, have written as well as spoken about so many ideas, and I want you to talk about some of the major books and the ideas within them, if you would.
Well, the book I did, of oral history about the black people I lived with in Marks, Mississippi, which was a town about half black, a little small town. And I told how I lost the manuscript, last time we had this show in a flood in Oklahoma. It flooded the basement of some friends of mine. I had 2 copies there. Well, then the book came back to me was my old friend Susan Miller. She's a Native American woman from Oklahoma who has taught Native American studies out in Arizona. And she tried to market the book for me. The street I live on here in Silver City, Durango Street, was all torn up to be rebuilt. And so she had come onto that street in the worst storm in January of 2006 and bogged down in the mud there. Took quite a while to get out of there, but she'd come to visit me with her son, who wanted to get out of the easy life of living in Phoenix, Arizona, and go up and camp in the mountains in the worst of January. His name is Robert. Everyone calls him Rabbit, and he was 20 years old, and he wanted to come up. And turned out she had a copy still, and she sent it to me. And then
that must have been a wonderful realization on your part.
Yeah, I mean, it's like resurrection from the dead. This whole community's life story. And so I had been doing work for helping this guy, Simon Cuthbert Kerr, who is a historian from Scotland, who was getting his PhD he was doing a PhD on the civil rights movement. And I've been helping him with that. He had sent me a lot of documents, reports that I had sent to the civil rights movement and never remembered that I'd sent them. The Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission spied on me and on other people in Marks, Mississippi. The record of their angle.
Now, George Wallace was over in Alabama.
Yeah. The Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission spied on me and other people, and he had their reports. He had my reports, and he sent me copies of them, and so I was able to add that to the book. I've sent the book to my friend who was there in Mississippi with me, Richard Arvidon, who lives in Connecticut now, and he's trying to show it to this woman. She's a white woman, but she teaches black studies, Cheryl Greenberg.
Well, gall.
Yeah, well, she's still an authority on the civil rights movement, and he wants to see if she can do something about getting it published. He is an aspiring writer himself.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, and connections, and that kind of makes me want to talk about television and the power of television, the awesome, huge power of the form. We should be so privileged to be able to talk about what's important to us. I mean, I know I shoot my mouth off sometimes about trivial stuff, but just think about television for a minute. It the only really major sense, well, touch too, but the sense, I mean, you don't get smell, and maybe in some ways that's just as well, but you have sound, you have the visual image, you have your imagination. It's as close to real. They said they're coming up with 3D TVs. I wonder what that'll be like. But television is just such a powerful form because people can just willingly suspend disbelief. Look at a couple of people just sitting here chewing the fat and discovering that, well, hey, there might be something in this that I'm slightly interested in. I wanted to ask you a question, Jody. You have had people discriminate towards you in a negative way because of your appearance, have you not?
Yeah, like when you're trying to go into places when you're hitchhiking, you can get pretty run down when you're hitchhiking. I've had that happen.
Is that what you call hardcore?
Yeah, it can happen, but it's not like one of these things that I spent my life grieving over.
No, you are not a griever. And would you say, don't you feel at home in Silver City? that a kindly energy comes towards you here?
Yeah, it's a nice place. It's a comfortable town to live in.
And I was kind of thinking you might be writing a book about Silver City or something.
Well, let's see. I have material that could go towards a study of English as spoken in Silver City. About as a general area, southwest New Mexico, about 8 core individuals, and the speech of about 8 core individuals, and a number of other people too. But 8 people I really have more material on than others.
And they're different dialectical, I mean, the way they, like people say that they can tell I'm from the South.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did used to try to hide that. You know what I mean? I would put on my best Middle American accent. But now, I mean, as long as people can understand what I'm saying, I don't hide it that much.
Well, 2 of the core individuals are Hispanic, and 2 of them, a Hispanic woman who's been to college, a half Hispanic man who has a 6th grade education, and then I have the 6 Anglos. 2 of them have been to college. 4 of them, one has been to high school. The others have less than a high school education.
Now, are the Hispanics speaking Spanish or English or both?
Well, one of the Hispanics, the woman has a year of college, and she is bilingual. But this is a study of English, and the Hispanic male, the core Hispanic male, is only half Hispanic. He does not speak Spanish, but his speech shows a very noticeable influence of Spanish. I mean, for example, both the man and the woman would say a sentence like, "I barely bought it." In Spanish, informal Mexican Spanish, "Apenas lo compré." Apenas, I just bought it. But apenas means hardly or barely.
Apenas.
I've heard people say apenas. I've heard people say apenas llega. She just got here. Well, they say I barely bought it. I barely did this or that.
Meaning I just bought it.
I just did it. And that's.
And I have never heard an Anglo say that.
That's a literal translation of Spanish. That's, and the young man who does not speak Spanish still uses that. And I might put this into a book if it might interest people around here to know this kind of stuff.
I'm kind of bi-illiterate about some things, but I'll tell you one thing I know for sure is that you hear Spanish on the street a great deal more in northern New Mexico than you do in southern New Mexico. And I don't want to go into the reasons, the speculations that a lot of people have for that. And I know it's a different kind of Spanish, but it's just not something I hear. You heard it all the time in northern New Mexico, so consequently my Spanish got a little bit better. I'm saying, lo siento mucho, no puedo hablar bien en español. I have to say that. Do you hear that noise pollution outside?
That's boombox. You want to wait for it to be over?
Well, no, I think it's good that people hear it. Probably they're going to get their hair cut before they go see the judge.
I have taught Spanish to 5 Hispanic children here in town.
Who grew up in a time and place where the parents said, you learn to speak English, you'll be better off if you don't speak Spanish. That's sad.
Well, in one case I know of, a case of 2 of the children, the father was a fluent Spanish-English bilingual. The mother had a good vocabulary, but she could not really speak Spanish. She didn't know the verb endings or anything like that.
Yeah, that's my problem.
And so she knew a lot of words in Spanish, but she did not have
how to put them together.
Yeah, she worked in the store that she and her husband owned. She could point to objects, and when there were people who came in who couldn't speak English, and find what objects they wanted, stuff like that. And so she took Spanish from me a little bit. She knew a lot of words, but she didn't know the structure of Spanish. And but the older boy learned Spanish pretty quickly. He is musician who likes to sing songs in Spanish, and he wanted to really know definitely what they meant. Yeah. The younger boy learned Spanish basically after I tried teaching him Spanish. He learned it afterwards.
I love to hear you sing songs and sort of pause and tell our audience what the song is about, and then go back into it. So I think we should take a break, and then we come back. We're pretty much going to wind things up.
Le plus jeune de toi, la pluie passe à main blanche. Le plus jeune de toi, la pluie passe à main blanche. Monte, monte la belle, dessus mon cheval gris. On logit chez mon père, je vous emmènerai. Montez, montez la belle, dessus mon cheval gris. On logit chez mon père, je vous emmènerai. Means the youngest of the three has taken her by her white hand. Mount up, fair one, on my gray horse, and to the house of my father I will take you away. Quand de la belle s'entend, elle se mit à pleurer. Quand de la belle s'entend, elle se mit à pleurer. Soupez, soupez la belle, prenez-vous appétit. Auprès du capitaine, vous passerez la nuit. Soupez, soupez la belle, prenez-vous appétit. Auprès du capitaine, vous passerez la nuit. And when the damsel heard this, she fell to weeping. She started weeping. Eat up, eat our dinner, fair damsel, and take your appetite, for it is with a captain that you will spend tonight. Quand de la belle entend, elle est tombée morte. Quand de la belle entend, elle est tombée morte. Sonnez les cloches, violon, tambour, marché. Ma millonnette est morte, j'en ai le cœur dolent. Sonnez les cloches, violon, tambour, marché. Ma millonnette est morte, j'en ai le cœur dolent. And when the damsel heard this, she fell down dead. Sound out the church bells and the drums, the violins, let us march. My sweetheart has died, and I have a sorrowful heart. Et volontairont-ils dans le jardin de son père, sous les trois feuilles de lys. Nous prierons Dieu, chers frères, qu'elle aille en paradis. Et volontairont-ils dans le jardin de son père, sous les trois feuilles de lys. Nous prierons Dieu, chers frères, qu'elle aille en paradis. And where will we bury her? Under the three flowers of the lily in the garden of her father. And we pray to God, dear brothers, that she will go into paradise. Quand au bout de 3 jours, la belle frappe à la porte. Au bout de 3 jours, la belle frappe à la porte. Ouvre la porte, cher père bien-aimé. J'ai fait la mort 3 jours pour sauver mon honneur. Ouvre la porte, cher père bien-aimé, j'ai fait l'amour 3 jours pour sauver mon honneur. And after 3 days, the damsel knocked at the door. Open up, dear father, my dearly beloved. I pretended to be dead for 3 days to save my honor. And that was sung by Julien Aupoir. And this is a sort of song that would never get that was passed on in families. It would never get recorded commercially. And the Lomaxes saved that and were able to give these recordings to the Hofpuer family of New Iberia, Louisiana, so that they would have them, you know, I think that, so that they would have them when they had family reunions. And they had tried to sing along with some of the songs that Alida and her sister sang on the recording. Some of them remembered some of these songs, and that they would have this with them, you know. Alan Lomax tried to go back to a number of the people in this country and Europe that they had recorded in folk song collecting tours, so that to return the songs to the communities they came from, you know.
Okay, so we've got everything we need right now.
I believe we do.
Oh, that's cool.
Won't you wait till the cows come home? Won't you wait till the cows come home? Dear old contented bell and boss, soon the meadow they will cross down the lane. At the close of day, once again, they will wend their way. Hear them in the dell, moo, contented you can tell, moo. Won't you wait, wait, wait by the old red gate? Won't you wait till the cows come home?